everybody! Happy Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning into Loud Majority Live. We are back, baby. And, of course, still rocking the Donald Trump did nothing wrong shirt because you know that, of course, Donald Trump did, in fact, do nothing wrong despite what racist district attorneys with political motivations say. We are back here on LFA TV. Before we get started, guys, make sure you guys are hitting that thumbs up button. Keep sharing the video out all over the place. Put it on all your social medias so that everyone knows what they got going on in this country. The political witch hunt against our former president and soon-to-be next president. Very excited about that. We are back.
So true.
We're back with my friend, Mr. Paul Ingrassia. Yeah. Paul, what's happening, brother?
Thank you, Kevin. It was such a record-breaking day yesterday on Loud Majority that Kevin signed me for a 10-year deal. $300 million.
10-year deal. I wish. That would absolutely be spectacular.
It's so great to be joining you again.
A 10-year deal.
Got like a double header over here. Yeah,
you're
signed
like
me 10 years, $300 million. This is like Yankees v. Mets right now.
You're like Manny Machado.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
truly.
Manny Machado, except he's slightly less of an asshole. So we are going to dive. I mean, Manny Machado's terrible. So we're going to dive right in.
He's a Trump supporter, though, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a big Trump supporter.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
he's one
funny.
of the most outspoken Trump supporters in baseball, Major League Baseball.
I know he's like the most hated man in baseball.
That's probably the reason why.
I know he cleats people, and he's like they say he doesn't hustle, but whatever. He's a Trump supporter. Yeah. Manny, come play in Queens, babe. Alrighty, so we've got this, just following up on the Trump news. This comes from timcast.com. Donald Trump is facing a maximum of 712 years in jail on all 91 counts. 712 years in jail. Is that a bit excessive? I would say so. This from timcast.com. On August 14th, Trump was indicted in Georgia and Fulton County on new 13 counts. According to Mediaite, the latest indictment brings the total number of charges facing Donald Trump to 91 and a maximum sentence of just up to 713 years in prison, if you're rounding up. Trump is unlikely to receive those maximum charges or have to serve them consecutively, even if he were found guilty. But earlier this month, obviously we know about the January 6th stuff. We know about the stuff in the city of New York. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get to just how bad things are in New York, what they could be focusing on and choosing not to. But as we see Donald Trump facing 713 years in prison, that is a bit excessive. I mean, I would be curious to know if Donald Trump...
A bit excessive. This is
a bit
clown world.
Just
a
slight bit excessive. I would be wondering if this would fall under the cruel and unusual punishment statutes, because obviously, you know, in many of these leftist-run states, you can rape somebody and be out of jail in less than a year. Yeah. But Donald Trump is facing, what would that be? If the average person lives to be 80, would that be
like 10 lifetimes potentially?
10 lifetimes in prison.
It's unreal. I mean, yeah. They violated double jeopardy. I'm sure this is a violation of cruel and unusual punishments. I mean, they're throwing the entire Constitution out the window. They're actually seeing what's in the Constitution and doing the very opposite of it. I mean, that's their playbook. That's the witch hunt that they're going after Trump with. And yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, this is truly absurd stuff that we're now seeing coming out of the state of Georgia with this unhinged, radical, deranged district attorney, Fani Willis. I put out a tweet yesterday saying everyone should call Brian Kemp's office. I put out the phone number. Viewers of this program should call the office if they can. Let me actually pull that up while Kevin talks about the next thing.
That would be great. They really should. You know, and this kind of stuff matters. I know this stuff when I was talking to my mother the other day, and she was telling me about when all the gay rights activists in New York City wanted change after the Stonewall riots and everything like that. These people actually went out and handcuffed themselves. They just wouldn't leave Gracie Mansion. I believe there was a murder in Jackson Heights. After that murder, they just wouldn't leave Gracie Mansion until something was done about it. You know, it is up to each and every one of us to apply that sort of pressure to Brian Kemp and to all of our local officials. I mean, I'm waiting for some of our local Republicans here in the state of New York to put out a statement. I got a feeling I could wait in one hand and crap in the other and see which one gets filled up first.
Probably. I mean, so many of them are secretly, quietly, unfortunately, rooting for Brian Kemp Governor Brian Kemp behind the scenes for him to not take any action, because most Republicans, even though they voice support for Donald Trump in public, really hate the guy behind closed doors. But the phone number that I want to read for your fans for Brian Kemp's office, 404-656-1776. That's 404-656-1776. Even if you're not a Georgian, put pressure on Brian Kemp's office to do something about this prosecution, either defund the DA's office or at least voice support for Donald Trump, because so far, absolute silence from Governor Brian Kemp. And he wouldn't be in office right now without Donald Trump's endorsement.
And, he was lucky to make it even in the first place.
Yes, he was.
He was lucky to be reelected after this whole debacle that went down in Florida. And, I do find it odd. Not odd. I find it interesting that, he says nothing about the election fraud when he wins.
No.
But when it comes to Donald Trump losing, he's also nowhere to be found. Something tells me that if Brian Kemp had lost this past election, he would have had a little bit more to say.
Well, we all know Brian Kemp is truly, in terms of establishment Republicans, Brian Kemp is right up there. He was at the World Economic Forum front and center with Klaus Schwab earlier this past year. He is truly a Republican Party establishment hack. He, of course, is a globalist and adheres strictly to that agenda, and he's always been very much anti-Donald Trump. So, his actions definitely are completely in line with where he falls within the Republican Party alongside Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell. But I think hearing from the people would definitely sway the needle a little bit in the direction of, obviously, President Trump and his supporters, because the base controls the party, and the people's voices are so important in terms of getting stuff done.
Absolutely. And we talk about that kind of stuff all the time, trying to just sway your local elected officials. That's why they're there. Mm-hmm. They're there to do what you want.
They are.
And look, if there's one thing I know about some of these elected leaders, just on the way they treat me,
mm-hmm.
and all of our local leaders, you get 6 people that call up and complain, and suddenly there's all press releases going out. There's all sorts of nonsense. So you know what? Maybe if a couple thousand people call the governor's office, and don't call him and be insane. Don't call him and say crazy things.
No.
Don't be violent. Don't threaten anyone. Just voice your opinion. Redress your government.
Say that this is an unconstitutional indictment. This is a violation of double jeopardy. Just say you support Donald Trump and you dislike what is going on. You're fearful that the weaponization of the justice system being done by these rogue DAs will lead us to a banana Republican, will lead us to a communist type situation. You hear about people who escaped from former communist countries in the former Soviet Union or the Soviet bloc in Eastern Europe, and they're still alive today, now residing in the United States, and they identify what's going on here and say it's exactly the same thing that they escaped from.
There was some, I forgot what his name was. He spoke at the RNC. He's like an oil executive now down in Florida, and he talks about his dad. I wish I could remember what his name was. Right. Gutierrez, I believe it was.
Yeah.
He talked about how his father would tell him, he asked his dad, why are we going to America? And he said, because there's nowhere else to go. Mm-hmm. And I said it the other day. I've never met a Cuban or a Venezuelan or a North Korean or somebody from the former Soviet bloc who's like, these ideas, guys, they work.
I know.
Everyone talks about, particularly the ones from Cuba,
mm-hmm.
they all talk about how they've heard this sort of rhetoric before.
Yep.
They've heard people talk about, and they spoke about that in terms of Bernie Sanders and the universal health care and free college.
Right.
Well, it turns out, if you have universal health care and no doctors, then no one gets health care.
Yep.
It is the irony of it all.
It truly is. And as you said, the people from Venezuela under Hugo Chavez, obviously there are still people alive today, and many people from the Castro era in Cuba, coming over in boats still to the coast of Miami, escaping here for freedom, for prosperity, for capitalism. Unfortunately, all those things are under siege right now. And unfortunately, we now have a system where the president of the United States, or the person who considers himself president, and Joe Biden, we know he's illegitimate, is now going after his main political opponent and a man who occupied the presidential office. So this is truly historic, what's going on in the country, in a very bad way. But thankfully, it seems like more and more people are waking up. And it seems like Donald Trump's momentum is stronger than ever. I mean, we talked about the polls yesterday.
Oh yeah,
and
it is wild to see how some of these people are tailed off. I mean, as I said, I didn't think Governor DeSantis would win this primary, but to see how bad it's gotten.
Did you actually not think he'd win?
Yeah, I didn't think he'd win. I knew. Look, I think that I truly.
He's a day one Trump supporter. He's been wearing that shirt.
I
since,
truly believe this. That I think that if Governor DeSantis had waited until 28, I think he probably would have walked into the nomination.
Yeah,
I do. But unless there was some new up and comer that I'm not aware of, maybe Daniel Cameron in Kentucky, maybe John Jones in Michigan. I'm sure there are people all across the country. But I think going into 28, he would have been the favorite, the odds-on favorite. But, as they say,
George Santos.
As they say, George Santos possibly, as they say, when you come after the king, don't miss. Truly. And the DeSantis campaign is certainly missing. And speaking of that, we've got this from Breitbart News, my favorite person on planet Earth. That's absolutely a joke. Bill Mitchell, who is one of the hacks on Twitter, is now empowering leftists to attack Donald Trump. Now, this just shows you how disingenuous people will do anything they possibly can to obtain power in this country. We've got this from Breitbart News. Bill Mitchell, a prominent pro-Ron DeSantis online influencer, hosted a far-left influencer on his podcast on Monday to attack former President Trump. Mitchell hosted the notorious anti-Trump online influencer Brian Krasenstein on his Your Voice America podcast. Krasenstein and his twin brother Ed gained a combined following of more than 1 million followers on Twitter during the Trump administration by flooding the former president's replies with attacks and criticism. Both Mitchell and the Krasenstein brothers were previously banned from the social media platform, but were reinstated when Elon Musk took control of the company. During the podcast episode, the pair discussed Trump's troubled campaign, cast doubts on his lead in the polls, and bolstered various criminal indictments against the former president. Now, the problem with, and I say this about people with polls all the time, I don't believe individual polls. I don't. But if you look at the same polls over the course of time, you see a trend. Because even if the poll is going to be fake, whatever company is doing it is going to do it the same way each time.
Yep.
So if you see whether it's Kaplan or whether it's McLaughlin, whether it's Harvard-Harris, whether it's a Siena poll, they will use the same methodology over the course of time. And to see that sort of drop-off in each one of those polls, I think is pretty shocking. But apparently the DeSantis campaign is saying that the polls are totally wrong and nothing is going to come of this, which I still find very funny.
That's hilarious. I mean, Kevin Smith has he's the nicest guy in the world, but for whatever reason, he has a lot of political enemies, and one of his most famous online social media enemies is, of course, Bill Mitchell, especially in recent weeks, ever since that Pennsylvania rally that you guys had, in which Bill Mitchell was claiming that no one was in attendance at the crowd. Kevin was there on the ground, filled to the rafters, teeming at the rafters.
They tried to use the excuse that nobody was sitting behind the press rafters.
Yeah.
And I want to be like, you know where nobody else was sitting either? In the bathrooms.
I know.
Or in the hallway.
Yeah.
Why would you sit at a rally where you can't see anything? You can't see if you're sitting behind the gigantic press rafters. But my favorite part of it was, I was telling Liz Willis this, that I was watching Bill Mitchell in real time tweet out videos.
Yep.
And I was looking at where are these videos coming from? They were coming from the cameraman from ABC.
Yeah.
So ABC is feeding a pro-DeSantis influencer videos. I believe it was NBC. It could have been NBC.
Yeah.
They were right next to each other.
Yeah.
But it was one of the cameramen. Well, and look, was I putting videos out? Yeah, but I was putting them out in my name. I didn't use a third-party surrogate in order to.
And those videos were taken, the ones from ABC, NBC, hours before the convention began. But also, then the next day, they showed the DeSantis rally, whatever you want to call it. There were like 12 people there. It was like it was like behind a dumpster on the side of the road. So
the rally in the alley, we called it. The rally in the alley. I mean, why would you ever do it there?
I know.
And if you were going to do it there, make sure there were no pictures of it taken.
That's probably the only venue that they could afford at this point.
The only one they would have.
And the other thing with Bill Mitchell, I just want to, Laura Loomer, I think she's actually, there's rumors that, well, she's definitely going on Tim Pool this week, and she might actually be debating Bill Mitchell live on air. So that's going to be must-see TV.
God. I want to hear that.
But what was funny about Laura, the reason why I mentioned her, actually Kevin and I saw her on Saturday. She did an event with the New York Young Republican
for the most banned person
City.
in the world, she's very nice.
She is extremely nice.
Apparently,
she's not crazy at all.
She's been banned from Uber Eats.
Unbelievable.
Which is what? You can't get a sandwich in
Actually,
this
there are
country.
two things. You reminded me when you were talking about handcuffs earlier, when they handcuffed themselves. I don't know if we talked about that on air or off air, but she was the one who handcuffed herself to the door of Twitter years before. She's been one of the most prominent in terms of suing Twitter for their censorship because she herself was censored for many years on that platform. But Laura tweeted, so the next day on Sunday, I mean, Kevin and I met her on Saturday at the New York Young Republicans event. Shout out to Gavin Wax and our friends there. But on Sunday, we traveled together, me, Laura, and my sister, to the Trump event at Bedminster for the Live Golf Tournament, where we actually had a meeting with President Trump for several hours. But while driving, Laura tweeted a photo of all three of us, saying that we're off to see the king. I mean, Kevin said before, if you attack the king, obviously what happens, don't miss. The DeSantis people, Bill Mitchell included, went nuts over it. They're always like, we don't have a king, we don't have a monarchy, this is the United States. They always, they can't take a joke for the life of them.
They can't, they really can't.
That's always the response. And obviously, obviously she's joking, but
yeah.
It's funny.
And right now, from that podcast, the big quote that came out of it was, "This is Bill Mitchell." Right now, you said he's like 54% in the polls, that being DeSantis.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's Trump. But that means that 46% of people are against Trump. So if you whittle that down to the rest of the field, it's like one or two different candidates. I think that candidate, or those two candidates, would have a decent shot at defeating Trump in the primary. So what they're saying is the polls are misleading because what they believe is that everyone who is not voting for Trump in the polls eventually will make their way over to the DeSantis camp, which first off, I don't believe is necessarily true. I think that the Vivek people will go over to Trump 100%, which puts Trump at like 68. Yeah. And yeah, sure. Maybe if Pence drops out, and the rest of the field drum, eventually Nikki Haley's money has to run out. I mean, because I don't know why are you running. There's a few people in the race that I'm like, what? We know why Chris Christie's running. Yeah. He's running to be that bulldog for Governor DeSantis. But I want to be like Doug Burgum. You seem like a nice guy. Yeah. Just stick to North Dakota. Yeah. What are you doing?
I forgot that he was even running.
Asa Hutchinson. What? Come on, bro.
Yeah. I mean, one thing, if you're 5 points down, 10 points, maybe even 20 points, you could argue that. But when you're 50, 60 points down, as DeSantis is in some of these latest polls, I mean, come on, buddy. Get in touch with reality. This is not – your campaign is over. Get out of the race and step aside and endorse President Trump.
And as I said, I think that he really screwed himself at 28. I think that he had a very good shot of walking.
I mean, that was like months ago. Now
it's over.
He squandered any political capital he had. I don't even think he may be able to finish out his term as Florida governor.
Well, I think
the people there are incensed.
I think he will be primaried in Florida at some point.
Definitely. But I mean, they may even try to get him out of office sooner than that with all these lawsuits. I mean, there's so many ethics complaints lodged against Ron DeSantis for being in violation of a slew of different laws, election laws, for running, for running both as governor or remaining as Florida governor and also running as president.
Think about this. How many people donated to the guy running for governor of Florida who's now running for president? You just lied about where my money. If I donated to Ron DeSantis to become governor of Florida, and he then takes that campaign right around when he said he wouldn't, he said, no, I'm not running for president until the Cokes and the Coke. Yeah, there's only one of them. Yeah, all the billionaire class got to him and said, the money's going to dry up. That just shows you how A, unpolitically savvy this guy is, but B, how he can be co-opted by the billionaire class. And it's so interesting to see when you see this sort of new populist movement on the right. not afraid to go after the billionaire class, which historically conservatives have not done.
Yeah, well, I mean, when all of your billionaires are truly Marxists, when they're endorsing woke policies, when they're for ESG, DEI, all the stuff Vivek Ramaswamy likes to talk about on the campaign trail, when they're supporting the Ukraine, when they're supporting open borders, of course you're going to be opposed to those people. I mean, their interests are fundamentally opposed to the American way of life. So, yeah, I mean, and the Trump campaign was the first to file a lot of these or raise awareness for a lot of these ethics violations from DeSantis. But don't think for a second that the Democrats in the state of Florida will forget about these. I mean, I think they're actually leading the charge. And I think Ron DeSantis, once he returns back to office, perhaps this is the reason why he hasn't dropped out yet, is because he has a mountain of issues as soon as he returns back to Tallahassee and has to deal with the reality of the situation there. So
I think the only saving grace he's going to come up with is the fact that so many people left their states to go to Florida. And as I said, that's not an impressive thing. Like, okay, Governor DeSantis, you're not Kathy Hochul. You're not J.B. Pritzker. You're not Ned Lamont. You're not who's in Jersey? What the hell's his name?
Murphy?
If you're not Phil Murphy, congratulations. Okay, so you're not 4 out of the 5 crappiest governors in America.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I know. But within the Republican Party, he probably is 1 or 2. I mean, at this point.
It is wild.
I mean, Christina Pushaw worked for Zelensky, so maybe he'll take up asylum under Zelensky when he's chased out of this country.
Well, I think that's what's so fascinating about it is that you would think, I don't care how good Christina Pushaw may be, you would think that with the Republican sentiment towards the war in Ukraine, maybe not hire a Ukrainian foreign agent, and when I say foreign agent, I'm not trying to say like James Bond. Yeah. I just mean someone who worked for a foreign government.
That's a legal term. She was registered as a foreign agent. Yeah, she was a registered
foreign agent. Yeah. Like I said, she's not, getting spy gadgets from Judi Dench.
She's not.
But like it is wild to see how bad they are at this. Mm-hmm. And for a campaign that is run so online.
Yeah.
How bad their online influencers are.
Yeah.
Bill Mitchell, Jenna Ellis, what the hell's the other one's name?
Cardillo.
John Cardillo, Pedro Gonzalez.
Yeah.
These people are inherently off-putting.
They are.
And anyone who lives online, who doesn't touch grass, bothers me, because it turns out that when you run an online campaign, you get online votes.
Truly.
And do you know how many votes you get online? 0.
Just the bots. Just the Chinese Twitter bots.
Just the Chinese Twitter bots.
I think even they're switching over to President Trump. So.
Yeah,
I mean, I agree. It's totally. I mean, that's why when I was with President Trump for 5 hours on Sunday, Kevin unfortunately missed that one. Very sad. He'll meet him possibly next week.
Possibly next week at a thing that someone should have told me about.
Yeah, but
we'll get to that.
We'll talk about that at another point. But
at another date.
President Trump. What was I even going to say here? But President Trump said, yes, our focus now, he doesn't even care about DeSantis anymore. DeSantis. He was getting a kick out of how DeSantis changed his name from DeSantis. If you go back to like CPAC 2016, when he was a congressman, he introduced himself to the crowd as Ron DeSantis. Now he changed it to DeSantis. Anyway.
They like to change names in that family. Hey, Jill.
Jillery, as they call her, because she's just like Hillary.
That's rough.
Anyway, so Trump was basically saying our focus now should be on Biden and the deep state, because these are our true political enemies. The other stuff is a distraction, which I agree with 100%. And I think Kevin agrees with now. Me too.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I couldn't agree more. It is wild to see. But we are going to. We didn't get a chance yesterday or today to really get into the into any of the actual news stories, because some of the big everything has been focused around the indictment of President Trump, which we're going to get, because we got a lot of stories coming out of New York City that are absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, guys, I want to talk to you about the Kids Guide to President Trump. Look, you guys know that your kids are not getting the correct education about what President Trump exactly did for this country in 2016 and what he will continue to do moving forward in 2024. Luckily, Mike Huckabee and his team have put together the Kids Guide to President Trump, the Kids Guide to Donald Trump, which you can pick up for free over at jeremyfortrump.com. That's Jeremy, F-O-R, Trump.com. Look, guys, there's absolutely no reason why not to pick this up. It's totally free. Pick up your free gift bundle today. Just cover shipping and handling. over at Jeremy for Trump. That's Jeremy, F-O-R Trump.com, so that your kids can be armed with the knowledge they need when they go back to school in a couple of weeks and have to battle their communist teachers. So go to JeremyForTrump.com. That's Jeremy, F-O-R Trump.com today. Please consider supporting the people who support this network. So obviously we were talking about New York City and how our beloved city, where you live, where I visit on a frequent basis, has gone to hell in a handbasket. This, you guys remember a while back, there was a crazy professor who attacked a New York Post reporter with a machete. We covered it on this show. Well, it turns out that she has been given a deal. She has been given a plea deal that she will not get any jail time for attacking this member of the press. This comes from the Post Millennial. This comes from the post. Here's the picture. Imagine this. Imagine a photograph of you holding a machete to someone's neck and then never having to face jail time. Never having, if all this guy did was go to her house to ask for comment, she could have just as easily said no comment and walked away.
Was that guy a CNN reporter, or was he?
He was with the New York Post.
Oh, he was with the New York Post.
A plea agreement may be offered to the former New York City woke college professor who caught the nation's attention after she threatened to, quote, chop a New York Post reporter's head off with a machete in May. Horrible. This potential plea deal, of which the details have not yet been revealed, is a possibility thanks to the discussions with prosecutors at the Bronx Criminal Court. Shanae Rodriguez, whatever, 46, could be seen showing up to the hearing with a black face mask, as well as a personal posse that attempted to block photographers from capturing her picture. According to the Bronx Criminal Court Judge Matthew Bondi, there is a possible deposition in the case. She faces charges of harassment and menacing after she was threatening and chasing a New York Post reporter with a machete down the street. Quote, if I see you on this block one more effing time, you're gonna... Rodriguez yelled at the time, get the F off the block, get the F off the block. So it turns out in my illustrious state, in this beautiful city that was once called New York, you can threaten a reporter, you can threaten to go straight ISIS and cut a reporter's head off and not face any jail time. First off, well, lady, why on earth do you have a machete in Manhattan?
I know.
I mean, are you cutting through?
How do you get a machete in Manhattan? That's definitely not licensed, or she doesn't have a permit for that one.
It definitely doesn't have. Are you breaking trail?
Yeah.
Are you fighting the Viet Cong that you must get through all the weeds? I mean, why would one even have that?
There are a lot of weeds in Central Park, and these days you probably want to carry that on you, given how high the crime is. But yeah, again, to Kevin's point, lawlessness in New York City, compared to some of our other cities, is actually in a pretty good condition, relatively speaking. Look at San Francisco, look at Chicago. The murder rates are at decades highs. I mean, New York is reverting back to its pre-Giuliani days in terms of homicide rates, in terms of homelessness.
We were there the other day for the Laura Loomer event, and it's just nasty. It's just disgusting. Look, cities are always going to be dirty. That's you cram that many people into a particular area, and you're gonna get rats, you're gonna get trash, you're gonna get homeless. But now there is just a constant dank smell of weed everywhere you go. It is shocking.
Yeah, I was talking to Trump about that. That was one of the issues we talked about, and I said, you smell pot everywhere you go in New York City. And he's like, and you're lucky if you're only smelling pot. There's, in many cases, it's far worse than pot. It's human feces all over the place. I mean, that's the case in D.C. That's the case in Los Angeles. So again, it's terrible. I mean,
shocking to see.
My sister and I, we were walking back from church the other day, and we had to walk through garbage, pretty much 20 blocks. I mean, she had all garbage all over her shoes and everything by the time we got back. Cities are filthy. Basic government functions like cleaning the streets, getting, obviously cracking down on crime. Those things are totally ineffective now. I mean, our leadership has collapsed.
And it is amazing. Things have gotten so bad in New York City that
Mm-hmm.
now, we keep hearing stories from other cities about malls closing in San Francisco because workers don't feel safe walking home at night. Now it's even starting to affect the rich people. On the other day on the show, we spoke about Lady Gaga's father, who owns Joanne's, which is a phenomenal restaurant. Lady Gaga sucks. Something awful. She's a good singer, but she's a terrible person. But Joanne's, her father's restaurant, is actually quite delicious. Now we're getting stories of another restaurateur, Danny Meyer.
Yeah.
He is closing 2 New York City restaurants housed in historic hotels that have become migrant shelters. So it turns out that some of the best restaurants in New York City are now going to be closing because of some of the migrant issues
they're all
that's been
becoming
happening.
migrant
And
shelters.
Danny Meyer, of course, founded Shake Shack.
Yeah.
And these have been in some of the biggest restaurants in New York City, but now they've been turned into homeless shelters. Prominent New York City restaurateur Danny Meyer, who founded Shake Shack, is closing 2 of his restaurants after the historic hotel they housed became migrant shelters. The Redberry Hotel, a landmark in Nomad. What is Nomad? Is that a neighborhood in New York?
Yeah, probably.
Nomad began housing migrants earlier this month as the city deals with its 57,000 asylum seekers. What are we doing? New York Post, do better. Asylum. They're illegal immigrants. The Union Square Hospitality Group.
We might have to take the side of the machete.
Yeah, maybe. What are we doing here? This is wild.
Maybe that was a conservative. No,
You got me. Maybe that's why she needed the machete to cut up the newspapers. But it turns out Shake Shack is. And there's been stories that's just pretty wild that because of all the scaffolding in New York City, that some restaurants, some businesses now closing before dark because people will not walk under the scaffoldings at night for fear of getting jumped.
Yeah.
So the city that never sleeps now can't keep a coffee shop open past dusk.
What will the city council say? They'll say, well, don't commit any crime between the hours of like 9 p.m. and 9 a.m.
Oh, we're going to get to that because Chicago's got a message for the criminals that is going to blow your mind.
So they think, if you tell everyone, please don't commit crimes, even though we don't have any laws anymore, we're not going to enforce anything. We don't have stop and frisk. I actually debated Tim Pool when I was on his show on Friday. We had a little bit of a heated talk about whether stop and frisk was effective. He was opposed to it. I said it was very good under Giuliani. I know Kevin's a libertarian here, so I'm not sure.
Well, look,
what
here's the thing about
his
stop and
position
frisk.
is.
You can have a legal argue. You can have a legal discussion about stop and frisk, about whether it violates the Second Amendment, whether it violates the Fourth Amendment. That's not really the point.
Yeah.
The point that I found so interesting is that you can't deny that it worked.
That it was effective.
That it worked.
Right,
It 100% worked. Look, and here's the thing, is that when it comes to stop and frisk, people always said that it was discriminatory because it went against a higher number of black people than white people.
It had a disparate impact on minorities.
But here's the reason.
Yeah.
Because if you go to certain neighborhoods in New York City, you don't see 15 white kids hanging outside of a deli in Williamsburg. You don't see people hanging out in front of a corner store all day long.
Well, just look at the statistics, the mathematics of it. I mean, Manhattan is only like 35% white, I think, at this point. Go to the Bronx, it's far less than that. So yeah, of course it's going to have a disproportionate impact on minorities. That's because they're the majority of the population in most of these boroughs. The other thing is, as Kevin said, it was effective, and it also was upheld by the Supreme Court as being constitutional and not in violation of either the Second Amendment or the Fourth Amendment in the, I believe there's the Terry v. Ohio case.
Oh, I just mean you could have a legal discussion about it, which I understand. I mean, I'm sure a liberal court probably would have overturned that.
Possibly.
So it's I can understand the legal discussion.
But that case has been on the books for decades now. I think it's an older case. So
and like I said, it worked.
Yeah,
it made the city safer.
And then you could lessen, maybe once you get the crime under control, then you maybe soften the pedal.
100%.
But as a temporary fix, of course you want to do that. I mean, it's either that or getting mugs on the subway on your way to work, or or being held up by a gunman, or being in one of these bodegas getting potentially, shot at. This is happening all over the city, and as a result, citizens are having to arm themselves and defend themselves. And God forbid they do, they wind up in prison for another 20 years.
Another 20
as
years.
we saw with the whole Ricky Vaughn case.
It is shocking to me, and I've got this from CBS News, which is something that I just find to be so funny. So as we see, there are signs in Times Square. Let me see. Can I pull this up real quick? There are signs in Times Square. Can you guys see this? That say gun-free zones. This is a gun-free zone, as if the criminal is going to say, well, you know, I was going to go to Times Square, but I've got my Mac 11 in my waistband. Now I'm going to have to go home and drop that off. Who does that impact? It just impacts the law-abiding citizen. That's all it does.
These white liberals, and I mean, their neighborhoods now are crime-ridden as well, but they put up that sign. It feels good. That's all what we have to do, and we don't have to do anything ugly about it or controversial or get our hands dirty. That's how they think the world works, and as a result, we see crime at an all-time high.
We see it all the time. Is that now it's starting to impact their neighborhoods? Bill Maher did a podcast to Marianne Williamson the other day. Obviously, Marianne Williamson is running for president on the Democratic ticket, losing because she's a crazy crystal lady. But you know, even he lives in with the rich people, in with the movie stars, and in one of those Malibu or wherever the hell it is. Yeah. The homeless are now starting to make their way over there.
I know.
That is not... Look, Skid Row always had homeless people, okay?
Yeah.
Venice Beach always had homeless hippies, you know, smoking pot and skateboarding all day long. That was part of, like, the culture that was down there.
Yeah, I know.
But now it's starting to get into the residential neighborhoods.
When I walk over to Kevin's $25 million townhouse on the Upper East Side... He gets paid big money for this show, by the way. Yeah, you see the homeless people even there. It's bad. It's bad. It's all over the place. It's uncontrollable. It's not isolated to the city neighborhoods anymore. It's become universal, and that's symptomatic of the general decline of our country and the corruption of justice and so on and so forth.
And you know what? What makes it 10 times worse is the influx of these illegal immigrants.
Yep.
Because, well, as I said, I don't care what city you're in, there's going to be homeless people, okay? Like I said, you put 2 million people on a small island in New York, and you're going to get homeless people.
Yeah.
But now with the influx of the immigrants, they're running out of places to put these homeless people. They're taking over homeless shelters. We've got this story from News Nation. We were talking about News Nation, about how News Nation is picking up all the scraps from everybody who gets fired from every other network, that New York City's new migrant shelter on Randall's Island is set to cost the taxpayers $20 million a month. Randall's Island migrant shelter could cost the taxpayers $20 million per month. Since 2022, 100,000 migrants have arrived.
Who's paying for this? I mean, a lot of New York is losing its population, aside from these migrants. I mean, they're filling in for it, but they're not paying taxes, these people. These people are getting government handouts.
Currently, the city spends $9.8 million a day.
Oh my God, such a waste of money.
$9.8 million. You know what that could be? That could be a starting pitcher on the Mets.
It could be.
That could be, but it won't be because,
I mean,
so New York City's new
migrant go ahead.
New York City's new migrant shelter is set to cost the taxpayer $20 million per month to maintain the shelter's operations, according to sources cited by the New York Post. The shelter, which will accommodate 2,000 adult asylum seekers, is located on Randall's Island. Oh, Randall's Island, you mean where they have concerts? I'm sure that'll go over well. You're going to get some EDM concert on Randall's Island, a bunch of teens tripping out on Molly, and what's going to happen? They're going to run into 2,000 military-aged men. Oh, I'm sure there won't be a single issue there.
Well, they sure ain't sending them to Rikers Island. They sure ain't sending them back to the Mexico, whatever, the Mexico border. I mean, that's where they should be going.
Well, they've been talking about shutting down Rikers Island as a prison for a long time.
The only person they want in there is Donald Trump.
Yeah, they've been talking about shutting it down as a prison for quite some time. Maybe they should just take it and make it into one big-ass migrant shelter.
Didn't they put Paul Manafort? Wasn't he actually in Rikers Island? I mean, I think they're actually, that when he was, obviously during the Trump years, for his affiliation with Donald Trump in the first impeachment, I think they actually stuck him for a time in Rikers Island.
Really?
I may be mistaken there, but the only people allowed in jail these days are anyone who's affiliated with Donald Trump.
But we talk about it. We talk about it a lot. The idea of the idea of anarcho-tyranny,
Yeah.
where we're basically
Anarcho-tyranny. Tell the people what that means.
well, that's basically what I've said it before, is that criminals are allowed to commit crimes because criminals commit crime.
And they control the system.
And they control the system. The problem becomes is that when you step out of line, when you defend yourself, like if you're, let's say, I don't know, on the subway and you see a crazy person threatening to kill people, and you decide, I'm going to step up and I'm going to protect everyone.
Yeah,
then you get charged with manslaughter like Daniel Penn.
I know. Look, it was true. Paul Manafort to be sent to Rikers where he will be held in isolation.
Unbelievable.
So, Trump supporters are actually being sent there, whereas the criminals, of course, are allowed to party with the college kids.
Party with the college. They're going to be going to Tiesto concerts on Randall's Island. Which,
they could smoke pot wherever they want.
They
these
could
days.
smoke pot.
So
wherever they want.
I don't know why they'd have to.
But we've got a story coming out of Chicago that we're going to get to in just 1 second. That is, imagine things being so bad that you let the criminals know that you're allowed to commit crimes, but only between certain hours. We'll get to that in 1 minute before we do a quick word from Mike Lindell.
Over the last 20 years, with all your support, we've been able to not only launch the original MyPillow, but also the MyPillow mattress topper, Giza Dream bed sheets, My Slippers, and the MyPillow bath towels. But there's so much more. In fact, we have over 200 products, and I'm so confident that you'll love each and every one of them that when you go to MyPillow.com now, you'll immediately receive a free gift valued at $20 just for checking out the website. No purchase necessary. Get everything from MyPillow blankets, sleepwear, kitchen towels, mattresses, duvets, pet beds, body pillows, comforters, couch pillows, bathrobes, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And remember, just for checking out MyPillow.com, you'll immediately receive a free gift valued at $20. No purchase necessary. This is a limited time promotion, so go to MyPillow.com now.
Guys, head on over to MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. That's MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. For up to 80% off everything on the website. Guys, please do consider supporting the people who support this show and this network. That's Mike Lindell. Head on over to MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. That's LOUD for up to 80% off everything on the website. So, are you ready for what the people of Chicago are now asking of their illustrious criminals? Apparently, Chicagoans are now asking criminals, hey, look, guys, if you could do us a favor and don't shoot anyone between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. You could do it before, you can do it after. We've got this from Breitbart News. Just don't do it then. This is wild. An organization called Native Sons in the Rogers Park neighborhood is asking that gang members pledge to ceasefire from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily so that no one lives in fear of being shot while going about their day-to-day activities. The push for the ceasefire is being called the People's Ordinance. Really? Under the new ordinance, we ask that people stop associating with and glorifying shooters, stop glorifying switches, and stop wearing those ski masks everywhere, which perpetuates you as some op when those who live in a certain lifestyle try to hang with the regular class citizens. They put everyone at risk. At the end of the day, 5-year-olds are being killed due to gun violence, 14-year-olds are being killed by gun violence, 78-year-olds are being killed by gun violence. Pregnant women, young boys with bright futures are being killed. Fathers are being killed by gun violence. This shouldn't be happening. You notice through that whole diatribe, they never mention the people doing the shooting. Because it turns out, you know who's killing the 5-year-olds and the 78-year-olds? The teenagers with the guns.
Yeah.
And, just so Chicagoans, just so you guys know, you have the strictest gun laws in the country.
Yeah.
You have the strictest gun laws in the country. So by all means, let's pass some more of them.
I mean, so we talk about black-on-black violence. I mean, in many cases, this is black-on-black violence. I mean, to reference one of Kevin's favorite writers, to sort of paraphrase it, George Floyd and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. And this is sort of the aftermath.
Wait, you're saying George Floyd is my favorite writer?
No, I'm quoting Ted Kaczynski in a certain way. I'm changing the quote a little bit because his is technology, whatever,
yeah.
and its consequences. I thought you'd get that reference. Never
No,
mind.
there you go.
Anyway, but this is the aftermath. This is the legacy of George Floyd, and the result of that. I mean, there was that whole push, you may recall, to defund prisons, to replace all law enforcement agencies with, what was it, like rehabilitation or therapy people, rather than have cops and rather than have the rule of law in these cities. So that's what you get.
It is wild to see, and that the idea of the Ferguson effect that people talk about, where now cops are just not.
I know.
Not
so many of the
crimes.
good cops, our good friends of the program, Sal Greco, forced out of the police department. There are many Sal Grecos all across the country.
Oh,
Chicago,
I know
Los
5
Angeles, New
guys
York.
that I grew up with who had like 5, maybe probably less than 10 years on the job, who after the George Floyd situations, they walked into the captain's office and said, "I'm done with this."
I know.
Why would you? Why would you run the risk? I mean, I don't know the guy's name. I think it's Tao.
Yeah.
So he was in the George Floyd kerfuffle, whatever you want to call it, and he got 5 years in jail for standing there. He didn't even do anything.
I know.
Why would you ever put yourself at risk like that? And that is the demoralization. That is the beating down of the police, because all the young guys got out. You know who else got out? All the veterans of the force who had enough time to get their pensions. So now when they hire new people, they don't have 20, 25-year guys to show them the ropes anymore.
No, they don't. They don't. I mean, and now with body cams and everything else that goes on, how they hyper monitor all these police officers, it's not worth it. It's not worth the risk. It's not worth it. And that's why, if they didn't kneel, or if they didn't agree with what was going on, or if they didn't get their vaccine, or if, God forbid, they voiced their support for Donald Trump or criticize an Eric Adams type mayor, or Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, or wherever else you may be, they get kicked out, or they even face very steep prison sentences, as Kevin's friend goes to show, as Sal Greco goes to show with his situation there. So it's terrible what's going on.
I would never be a cop today. Like, why would you? And it's not like they're doing it for like, all right, it's great pay. You start out at like, I don't know, 45, 50. Like, what? That you can't live on that. I mean, you. I know plenty of cops who are living with their parents still.
No,
because they just got on the job. It's absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. And people are afraid to speak out about it. Luckily, some people are starting to speak out about unrelated issues. We've got this from the Daily Wire, which we're going to get to in 1 minute. Before we do, I want to talk to you guys about Loud Majority US. Look, guys, the best way to support this show and everything that we're doing is to head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Check out the shop. You guys can pick up your own Donald Trump Did Nothing Wrong shirts, so that when you're walking around the supermarket, everyone knows that you are, in fact, awesome. You can go to loudmajorityusa.com.
These things are selling out so quickly. They're huge, so make sure you get yours now.
Grab them now. That's the best way to support this show and everything we got going on. You can use promo code LFA. That's Lima Foxtrot Alpha for 20% off everything on the website. That is LFA Lima Foxtrot Alpha for 20% off everything on the website. So the California Senate, the California state legislature, is back in session, and parents have begun to fight back. This from the Daily Wire. California parents protest radical gender theory related bills as Senate lawmakers return from their summer recess. It's good to know that the parents in California are beginning to take a proactive approach and not reactive to many of these nonsense bills. We know about the California lawmaker Scott Wiener, who is a pervert, he's sick in the head, who should be removed from his position immediately. This is the man who tried to get pedophilia legalized in the state of California. This is the man who took lying about being HIV positive, brought it down from a manslaughter charge to just a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to see that the parents are really starting to get pissed off. And it's important because despite what people think about California, California actually has the most Republicans in it of any state in the country. This from the Daily Wire. The parents' rights activist group reportedly staged a demonstration outside of the California Capitol in Sacramento on Monday, condemning so-called gender-affirming care while promoting parental notification involving evolving student gender policy. Local media reported the group of parents gathered on the Capitol lawn to voice opposition against several new radical gender theory-related laws expected to gain momentum in the coming weeks, including undermining parental authority and requiring state-controlled curriculum and targeting local school boards. We are going to lobby these bad bills. We are going to lobby these bad bills, trying to quiet us up as parents. One of the activists told Fox News. We have no desire to stop. We're linking arms. This has always been us, and I'm empowered by this. I know a lot of people talk about how they don't want to go to protests because they're worried about Antifa showing up. They're worried about this. They're worried about that. But my argument has always been that's the point. Mm-hmm. The point is to demoralize you. You have to show up to these things. And the majority of the time you show up, nothing happens. When we protested down in the bowels of New York City.
You know what's surprising is I actually just recently saw a tweet yesterday, and Laura Loomer attacked her on this right away. Marjorie Taylor Greene saying don't show up to protest in front of the courthouse in Georgia for the latest indictment. That's so weird that she would say that now, given the fact that Kevin and I were both in Manhattan back in April, and she showed up there
with her.
With her, and she was totally for that then. So that's just another issue with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Are so many.
But you're right.
There's so many people in Congress that are so.
I know.
They'll
flip like that.
I just don't get it. Like what about what? Unless she knows something in Georgia.
Yeah.
Maybe there's, some law against that, or I'm sure there is something that goes against, like, I don't know.
No, there is no law. There is no law. The issue is, they're afraid, or they, for whatever reason, I don't know, she's no longer
one of us.
One of us. Anyway, but the point that going back to the teachers
I just saw this.
It's a good thing.
I just saw that Marjorie Taylor Greene posted
an upside-down American
American
All right,
flag.
That's great, but why don't you show up and hold up your upside-down American flag in person and let the world see it?
Absolutely. It is incredible. Before we close out today, I do have one. Obviously, you guys know we talk about the culture on this show, and the culture that many of us got to grow up with that no longer exists, and that would be a fun ESPN. All right, look, I grew up watching some of the best to ever do it. Dan Patrick, Kenny Mayne, Stuart Scott, Linda Cohn. These were the best sports broadcasters in the world, but as ESPN has been bought by Disney, they have gone totally woke, and one of their biggest anchors is now leaving. We'll get to that in 1 minute. Before we do, make sure you guys are hitting that thumbs up button.
Rumble. Let's have another record-breaking day.
I haven't said it once today, which is odd. You and I have good conversations. I don't even think we do.
The hour flies by. We could probably do like 4 hours.
The hour absolutely flies by. Guys, I want to talk to you about the LFA TV store. Guys, Jeremy Harrell's having a huge blowout sale over there on the Rise Up Coffee, on the Armor of God shirts. You can't beat God hats in those new Christian hats he just picked up. Guys,
Kevin has a lot of those Christian hats.
That is the best way to support this network. Please consider becoming a monthly donor over at the LFA TV shop. That's LFATV.us, LFATV.us. Guys, that's your best way to help what we're doing over here. Please consider supporting all of the sponsors down in the description video of this video.
I saw Robbie Sunshine, huge fan of the program, a longtime devoted follower of LFA TV, sharing the shirt that he bought from Jeremy. So whenever you get this stuff, be sure to take a picture of it, and all your favorite LFA TV hosts will retweet it.
Tag LFA TV on Twitter.
Truly.
So look, I grew up watching this woman on ESPN. Her name's Sage Steele. She's leaving ESPN after 16 years to exercise her First Amendment rights more freely, which is wild. One would think that this wouldn't be something that is necessary to even have a conversation about when it comes to sports network.
Yeah.
However, the idea of the hot take sports media has really taken over. Sage Steele is starting a new chapter. The longtime SportsCenter anchor announces on Tuesday she's leaving ESPN after 16 years to more freely exercise her First Amendment rights. She wrote on Twitter, "Life update. I have successfully settled my case with ESPN and Disney. I have decided to leave so I can exercise my First Amendment rights more freely. I am grateful for so many wonderful experiences over the past 16 years, and I'm excited to start my new chapter. ESPN addressed Steele's departure in a statement on Tuesday. ESPN and Steele have mutually agreed to part ways. We thank her for her many contributions to the network over the years. You know, it's said, and I know that a lot of people don't necessarily care about sports, and I get that. We were talking the other day about this, about how I think it's important to have a life outside of politics. You know, every night, and I'm sure Philly Kid and MD Norton will get a good laugh at this one. But
maybe
you know,
even Greg the Patriot too.
Oh yeah, all those. The Greg the Patriot will love it. But you know, I like from 7 to 10 o'clock every night. Yeah. Just tuning it out.
He watches his Mets.
Just tuning it out.
He watches his Mets. And Kevin and I also, before the show, were talking about News Nation, where that they're taking all the leftover Fox News, CNN hosts, Cuomo, Bill O'Reilly, any guy on either side of the aisle within the mainstream networks. They're going to need to build out a sports department within News Network.
Well,
for all these ESPN
recently,
reporters.
Dave Portnoy bought back Barstool, so at least that can go back to being fun again. You know?
But they don't do broadcasting though. They're going to have to build out a separate network.
You know, it's so
for
interesting
sports broadcasting
because ESPN got so woke.
Yeah.
But they just, for the sports fans out there, you guys will get this. Pat McAfee just got his own show, and that guy says whatever the hell he wants to say.
Yeah.
That guy says whatever he wants to say.
Is ESPN owned by Disney?
ESPN is owned by Disney.
Okay, so that makes sense. Yeah,
100%.
I mean, you have Apple also and Amazon, the major companies who now do sports broadcasts.
Well, because it turns out that one of the look, and as we watch the cable entity die. The idea of just cable, a lot of people cutting the cords. Yeah. It turns out that the one profitable entity on cable is live sports.
Yeah.
People still look. I know a lot of people
a lot of them turn them off in the wake of George Floyd kneeling, vaccines.
But it turns out a lot of people.
MLB does LGBT nights.
100%. But a lot of people still watch the NFL. You know, a lot of people still watch
that's
Major League Baseball.
It's a little upsetting, but I think the Texas Rangers are the only team that don't do LGBT night.
No, that's Sean's team.
Yeah.
That's Sean's team.
Yeah,
He's a big Texas Rangers
fan.
They're
the lone holdouts. But, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a shame that politics now affects everything. It's infiltrated everything. You can't escape from it. But it's reassuring that you have these alternative networks forming, it seems like, in this parallel economy. Challenging the woke mainstream
the
legacy
market,
institutions.
The market always wins.
Hopefully,
no matter what you do, you can't beat the invisible hand, as Adam Smith said.
Yeah,
so
I mean, even though all the corporations are woke these days, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We may need some state involvement, but that's a separate. That's
a separate topic, guys. We are wrapping up on 2:00. I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. I want to thank Paul for coming in for another episode, another
record-breaking
episode. Here on LFA TV. Guys, on your way out the door, hit the thumbs up button. Keep sharing the video out. Stay tuned for Matter of Fact up next with Ryan Mata, Anna Perez after that, Pete Santelli, and then back with Jeremy Harrell. Guys, we are running the best broadcasting anywhere here. I think we go from 9 in the morning to midnight now.
I know.
What is happening? The best political news channel anywhere in the world right here, LFA TV. Guys, head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out the shop. You can pick up these Donald Trump did nothing wrong shirts. That's the best way to support this network. Use promo code LFA for 20% off. I want to thank Paul once again for coming in.
Thank you, Kevin. It's always so much fun being here with you at the Loud Majority studio.
Thank you so much. Guys, I will see you back here live tomorrow. And until then, stay loud.